Hello and welcome to my poetry vlog. I was going to wait to do this because I was like, oh, I'm too busy, but then I realized I do have extra time this weekend that I wouldn't normally have because of the Easter holiday. And so I'm gonna go with it. This is, of course, fulfilling Sage's challenge at the end of one of their poetry vlogs to get more of us in the community to make them. So full credit goes to Sage, and then also inspiration from Beck from Mooney Reads by Starlight and Bert from Storytime, who both put them out this week. So yeah, we'll see what I can write. I haven't been writing much poetry lately because I've been doing so much novel stuff and just other prose things. I have one to finish that I started a while ago that was inspired by one of the prompts that Sage did in the Andrea Gibson workshop that they took. And so I need to finish that. There's a couple of older pieces that I wanted to share for various reasons. Right now I'm reading the best pairing of YA books, one on audio and one on in hard copy, which is Bruised by Tanya Bodejoux and Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Booley. Both of them have such vibrant characters, and they're kind of like on the older end of YA because both the characters are 18, which I appreciate that, and I'm just loving them both so much. And I was thinking I would try to read a poetry book this week. I still have to finish Ordinary Time by Nikki Mayu, which I was reading and I was hoping to get done by March because then I could put it in my wrap-up. But if I finish it today, then I can still put it in my wrap-up, I think, because I was going to try to film that today as well. My parents are off on errands and doctor's appointment stuff, so I have the house to myself for a while, and I'm taking full advantage of talking a lot for all these things. So anyways, I will check back in later and share one of the older poems.
I'm fucking gay, and thank God for that.
So last year during National Poetry Month, I wrote a poem every day with one of my friends, and one of our prompts for the 29th of April was, I think, to write something based on a book. So I wrote this poem that was inspired by The Seep by Hannah Porter. So I'm going to read it now. In which crimson flowers remind nobody of blood anymore except you. They say that sadness is not vital. You can swallow it away in syrupy ecstasy, your eyes glazed over with the green of every vine that has choked out the old reality of things like shopping malls and war and death. Pain is an antique now, or so they tell you. You are an antique now. Antiques take their hands out of their pockets and crush bourbon bottles beneath their boots. Antiques take the train home and sit in a puddle of their own grief. To be alone is not always in need of a cure. You know this. You do not forget. So I haven't written any poems yet, but I took care of all the recordings and then was just laying on my bed reading Bruised for a while. But now my parents are off at a Good Friday service, so I'm here with some wine and this. Bert, in his vlog, had pulled out some old notebooks from his teen years of poems, and that reminded me about my box here. My box of childhood writing. For me, teen poems would not be as old, obviously, and most of my teenage poetry was like weirdly like full of asterisks and slashes and was like all about Percy Jackson characters and like center aligned and just very cringy. So I don't really feel like looking at that, but I thought it would be really funny to look at some of this poetry that I wrote when I was like 6. Okay, so I just poured out this whole thing. Some of this is not poetry. Okay, here we go. There's some like slightly iconic ones. All right, so this is written in my mom's writing on this super tiny piece of paper.
Futilely postal delivery. March to the mailbox to get a package, all so big. And then I repeat that, all so big for tonight's dinner. Andrea, June 16th, 2004. Peak literature. If you see some legs in a tree, that means someone's climbing it. Better not throw leaves, they might rush down. And then, rules about climbing trees, haha, April 26, 2005. Mix up your feet, you better not throw leaves at a tree. When someone is climbing it, when someone climbs down the tree, throw leaves or you'll have a poke for no hammock. No hammock. At least it doesn't rhyme. At least it doesn't rhyme. Little fairies, little gnomes, little elves work all day and night, lisping, whispering, flowering, and bowering. Little fairies, little gnomes, little elves. March 8th, 2005. Of course I was writing about gnomes. Of course I was writing about gnomes. Yeah, I don't know. Some of these are like very sort of like nature poems. Grasses, grasses, rivers, rivers. I just like repeat a bunch of nature objects. The skies are blue, the ground is full of leaves. The Michaelmas daisies are poking their heads out. Today, oh today, autumn. Sounds like some Mary Oliver ripoffs there. Yeah, this is like a toy grocery shopping list. Juice, milk, jam. Oh no, it's a receipt. A fake receipt. More things about gnomes. 2 little goats. I mean, there's some imagery here, and there is no rhyming, but the language doesn't really crackle. It's like pretty simplistic. This is my extremely legible writing. So small. And we've got some all caps of my mom's writing. Oh, wow. A family tree for the pioneer story I was writing. These characters were pioneers who had moved from Hawaii to Massachusetts and lived on a road called Pareidolia Cross Road, which was taken from a road that I saw when I lived in Massachusetts when I was like 3, and I was like obsessed with this road sign that, I mean, I couldn't read it, so I didn't even know, like, I guess my parents told me what it was called and I just like latched onto that. But that very weird reverse pioneers tale written with clearly zero understanding of anything about history is the starting point of what got me to the writing I do today. So, oh yeah, look, Pareidolia Cross poems. Like what? This isn't even about the characters. Please use our vegetables. Please use our fruit. Please use our herbs. When your body takes in love, that makes people happy. The clouds in the sky turn pink. December 5th, 2005. Wisdom from a 7-year-old. Yes, we've exhausted the... What the hell? Okay. Sarah and Indy, this is for you. We've got Hello Canada. Writing, lunch, recite ABCs, sing goodbye. I promise there's gonna be better poems coming in the next part of this vlog. Well, I feel very silly. I just filmed my February-March wrap-up and my camera was like, hey, your card is full, you have to stop filming now. And I was like, okay, I will now film on my phone. And then I just discovered that I still had my last 3 videos on the card. And so I was like, if I had just deleted those, then I would have been able to film the rest of it on there. But I just don't feel like redoing that. And so that's just gonna have to be how it is with sound problems at the end. But anyways, I finished that poem that I started after Sage first shared one with the prompt from Andrea Gibson's workshop that they took to write about how you perceived love or experienced love at all the different ages in your life. I think I'm understanding it correctly. I went back and watched the end. Sage's poem is just so beautiful. You should really check it out if you haven't already, which I assume most people who are watching my videos is subscribed to Sage. But I finished that, and so I thought I would share that. I did write a poem with the escape roll prompt, which is a thing on Instagram. It's run by a poet named Savannah Brown. So I did do that. I will try to do another one today. I was thinking I would just do a week of them. I have done the 30-day thing. It's stressful. I don't want to do it right now, but I thought I would at least do 30 days, or at least do a week. I did one last night and I'll do one tonight, but I wanted to just share this Ages of Love poem instead, because I had told Sage I was doing it and want to just share it on here. I guess just in talking a bit more about my poetry process, I used to not write it unless there was a specific topic or thing I was like focusing on. Like I was like, oh, I have to write about this experience to process it, or write about this thing because it like needs to be talked about. So often if I don't have anything to say in a poem, I will struggle to like come up with something. And so I do like prompts for that reason, that it kind of pushes me outside of that. And I think when I did it last year, it really showed me other things to write about that I hadn't thought about talking about in poetry, and just really pushed me to have more imagery, which of course I have learned so much about since taking a poetry class last winter, like the semester that was interrupted by COVID, and through being the lit editor at my college magazine. But there are still ways in which I think that a lot of my poetry treads the same tracks. I find it quite difficult to write poetry that's not very autobiographical and vulnerable, or that is not about my characters. That's kind of like my go-to, is I will write fictional poetry, like that Seep poem as well, if I just don't think of something in my own life to write about. I don't know, I think I need to kind of push myself more to think about what ways can I write poetry that is still very honest and true, but that does still kind of push the current sort of repertoire of what I do write. That being said, this poem here is something that is going to be very familiar to people that know me in real life, but I thought it would be a good way to be a bit more vulnerable on this poetry vlog, because I know everyone else who has shared theirs so far has really been, and I really admire that, and I don't feel super nervous about sharing it or anything, because I think my poetry class kind of cured me of that a bit. But yeah, so I guess I'll just dive in. Hopefully I can get some B-roll to cross over with it. Sage had just done a handful of ages, not every single age, because that would make a very long poem, so that's the format that I used as well. Age 2. Papa carries you to the fall-down tree. You reach from his arms to pluck tiny rocks from its roots. Mama wraps you in flannel and pine needles, a shield from the world that can't keep you from screaming when your crib is moved. Age 6. You can only imagine danger, twirling in silk ribbon grandmother circles, dolls at your feet. Age 9. Resent the mountains, beg to go home. Home is the saltless ocean, is mother, but even she does not understand you. Age 13. People say he died to rescue you from eternal torment, that he cared that much. And you believe it. Age 16. You write a story of a girl and a boy so head over heels they are nearly the same person. This is all that is allowed of romance. Age 17. You want to rescue her, want them to rescue you. What is the sacrifice of Christ when you can have this salvation instead? Age 18. Your ache is far too strong for this world. Not even God can take it. Age 20. She loves you most when she is drunk, but you love her best when she is turning away. Age 21. You know queerness cannot mean denying parts of yourself for someone, but only in theory. Age 22. If you are worth being left, then you are also worth your poems being read, your grin bursting sunshine loud by a rotting stone wall, just as you are. Age 23. If you are to learn to honor yourself, you first must believe you can care for others well. You can. I don't have my earbuds, so the sound is probably not great, but oh, I just finished Bruised. I loved it so much, and the acknowledgements even made me get emotional, not only the book. It's so good. So good. If you like YA contemporary that deals with a lot of tough issues and has extremely vibrant, very queer cast of characters, please read this.
This is now Thursday, but I did not really expect that I would be able to film so much during my busy school/work week. But I have been writing poems. A couple of my poetry friends from college have jumped on board to join me for this week, and that's been really great. I was following the escape roll prompts for the past few days and wrote some really good, pieces that I think turned out well, that I am proud of, that I'm not entirely frustrated with. I'm not sure if I'll share them just because they're kind of long and also involve other people, and I don't know. But I had a really great time on this live that Iris and Sarah and Sage and Julia and Beck all did last night. And I was able to finish my prompt for that day and just had some really sweet conversations about poetry with them. I have not been reading much of it just because I've been busy, and also my copy of This Wound is a World has not arrived yet, which is the updated Patreon pick for Sage's April buddy read, because Flowers on the Moon was not good. So I'll be waiting on that. I'm sure it will not show up before the end of this vlog, but I did have a very interesting library haul yesterday. I'll put a picture of it here. Truly the most opposite books I could have chosen. And also I picked up The Barrel Will Send What It May by Margaret Kilroy, which is a sequel to The Lamb Will Slaughter the Lion, at my little local radical bookstore called Wild Pages. Hi, I cut my hair and did not so terrible a job of it. The back is apparently very uneven, but I can't see it, and hardly anybody is going to see it either at this point in the world, so oh well. It's now Sunday, so this vlog is going a little bit longer than I expected it to. I was just in a very strange mood yesterday, hence the hair cutting, but it did make me feel a lot better. My undercut, or as Angel and I were referring to it as on one of the live shows that's been happening lately, reverse mullet. But it was getting so long and it was just driving me up the wall. So anyways, I have written a poem consistently every day. And while I still have not read any poetry since the other day when I got my weird library haul, I did start The Barrel Will Send What It May last night during the read-in on Discord with Sage's Patreon, and I'm already on page 62, and I'm really loving it. I think I need to read more sequels, which is tricky because most of the books that I am gravitated toward don't have sequels. But yeah, it's great fun. And then Sage and I started The Need yesterday. I've been listening to it while I've been doing things around the house. And it's very intense. It's a thriller, but it's the kind of thriller that I can manage. It's definitely not to the level of the thrillers that I've heard folks talk about. It's not a ton like Stay and Fight, like Goodreads said it would be, but it's interesting so far. And I also have been reading, since the day that I went to the library, A Cup of Water Under My Bed by Daisy Hernandez. This is a queer Cuban Colombian American memoir from 2014, and Daisy also edited an anthology called Colonize This, Young Woman of Color on Today's Feminism. And the story is like about her growing up in New Jersey with a Cuban dad and a Colombian mom, and kind of alternating with stories about being in college, in grad school, coming into an awareness of her bisexuality. It is so, so beautiful. I was reading it a couple of nights ago and wanting to underline so many things or highlight so many things that I was like, okay, I'm just gonna buy it like right now. So I headed over to Better World Books. If it was newer, I probably would have bought it new, but I figured I would be able to find a good copy used since it's like 7 years old. So I bought it, and also bought a copy of Astrophysics for People in a Hurry for my dad's birthday, which is coming up soon. Bookshelf just made strange noises. So I'm pausing on this until that arrives so that I can annotate it. But I wanted to share, oh gosh, there are so many good lines. My mother is an expert in the relationship between silence and language. She knows when and for how long to permit the stillness to step in and take its sovereign place. So there, that's one of my favorite quotes that I had read earlier on. There's a lot more that were part of the chapter called Even If I Kiss a Woman. Yeah, so I'm reading this as part of my novel writing research. I have been consistently trying to keep an eye out for queer Cuban narratives because one of my supporting characters is Cuban and non-binary, second generation Cuban American. Yeah, their grandmother moved. Yeah. So I still have not found anything that is specifically that, whether or not it is a film or a podcast interview or a book or anything. But I just thought that this would be a good read anyways, and I am really loving it. The way that it's organized is a lot of really short spurts, and it's a little bit non-linear, and just really giving me a lot of writing inspiration in general, just in terms of craft. So if anyone has ever come across like articles or podcast interviews or anything with someone talking about the experience of being non-binary and Cuban American, that would be super cool. I'm still considering getting a copy of that book, Brown Transfigurations by Francisco J. Guilarte. I did listen to an interview on the podcast Gender Reveal with the author, and it was super interesting, but it was mostly discussing like queer studies, Latinx studies, Chicanx studies in like an academic field and like how that works for the author and like how the experience has been. And of course I will find a sensitivity reader when the book kind of rolls around to that point. Anyways, this is not a vlog specifically about my author responsibilities, but it's supposed to be about poetry. So I wanted to talk a little bit more real quick about not being able to write poetry that is either not specifically autobiographical or based in my novel or in a book that I've read. And so I wanted to elaborate on that because I was thinking about it more and talking with some folks about kind of the same themes consistently showing up in poetry and kind of being frustrated by that. Like, why can I not write about anything besides this topic or whatever? And I think what it really comes down to for me is that I am a storyteller first. And so whenever I write poetry, it needs to be, at least at this point in my life, I need to exercise this muscle. It needs to be like rooted in a larger universe of emotional experience. Like, I can't write something that has emotional resonance and that feels honest and that feels like it's not didactic or boring. Like, I've tried to write just sort of general political poetry and it sounds didactic and it doesn't have any kind of root to it. I've attempted some nature poetry and I have one successful one, I believe, but it has myself in it. It's like about a specific walk that I took. And so I can't write like vague nature poetry like Mary Oliver or whatever. I mean, there's nothing wrong with any of that. It's my style, I guess. But it was just really interesting to think about that in my, like, with that knowledge that I've always had about myself and the fact that I am a storyteller, but like really honing in on how that influences my poetry so much, and also thinking about how poetry for me has so often been a way to process things as opposed to just like something to write. And so even when I do have these prompts, the past couple of days, I've been writing about like very specific life experiences that involve other people, which is why I don't necessarily want to read them on this video. Yeah, I don't know. So last night I wrote something with
one of the later escape roll prompts, because my college poet friends and I were like, today's prompt is kind of boring. We want to pick something more interesting. And so we went with Pareidolia. I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation, but it means like seeing something in an object that's not actually there. So it's like seeing a face on the moon, the whole like, oh my God, I saw Jesus in a corn chip, like that kind of thing. But also hearing sounds that are not in music, or like hearing music in like a heater vent, or when people play songs backwards and I'm like, there is a message in this. And I was able to follow the form of a dictionary poem and kind of use that like constraint, starting with a definition and kind of slowly going into a more like rambling tone. Like dictionary poems often are like one definition, and then two, a definition like phrase in your own writing, and then three, keep on going with that, and then four kind of, or five, or like however it goes, it just like deteriorates from that structure and just goes on to like a prose poem. And so I was able to keep myself out of it at the beginning and just kind of use these images and descriptions of like phenomenon, and then go into like a very specific experience that I had that's not like some overarching relationship or like specific angsty period or whatever, but it was about this time that I went to this place and I turned it into this very like surreal situation. And I was like, okay, this is working. And it still felt really honest and creative and different, and I really liked how it turned out. But I can't read it because I really, really want to try to polish this more and try to submit it, because that is like something that I want to do as soon as I graduate and I'm less busy. I think this would count as posting it or like publishing it elsewhere. And so we'll see how that goes. I'm supposed to come up with a list of possible submission places for my writing teacher as part of one of the last assignments for the semester. And so if any of you BookTube Poetry Pals are interested in talking about submission places, let me know, because I have a huge bookmark list as part of that project, which I have to work on today because it's due on Tuesday. So this is getting to be a very long clip. I want to close this out now because it's been a week and it's been great to write more, and I kind of want to just keep going, even though I am supposed to keep writing my novel as well. Speaking of that, I'm going to close out with a short poem that I wrote a few days ago about, or from the perspective of one of the main characters in my novel, because it's not one that I want to publish, and it's not one that exposes other people's business online. So we'll finish off with that. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Sage and Beck and Bert and all of the other folks who are writing poetry right now and who are posting vlogs. Let me know in the comments if you have been writing poetry, and if you want to see my dictionary poem, I can message it to folks, because that's not counting as publishing publicly or whatever. So anyways, hope you all enjoyed, and I'll be back sometime soon. Goodbye.
So the prompt for this one was tessellate. I stand above the pieces of my mother's life like so many splintered wine bottles and smashed plates. Can I tessellate this? Trace this? Timeline this with my own scarred hands? Fragment of a mug here, Virgin Mary shame, slice of a bottle there, runaway, mother, fake ID. Next, a piece of punched-out window screen to sieve years of 50 proof, distillation falling through because it never sticks. It only fixes for a night. Can I make sense of this, weave this, mosaic this, and not split open my own knees on the glass? Even if the tessellation makes a sloppy picture, it won't bring forgiveness. I have lost too much blood from these fractures to be anything but exhausted. I'm sorry, this is a very sad ending to the vlog, but my book is not extremely happy. But something happy that did happen yesterday was that I got some book mail, This Wound is a World, and Galactic Hellcats. So I will be diving into those as soon as possible. Thanks again for watching. Bye.